So how are you feeling about climbing these stairs, Mary?
Not terrific. We've done stairs. We've done lots.
But if we wanted to get to the castle, we'd be climbing. After parking in a more picturesque section of Heidelberg, it was off to the castle. It was the thing to see. Started in about 1400, Schloss Heidelberg was the dwelling of Elector Ruprecht III, who had named himself Ruprecht I, King of Germany in 1400. In 1543, the upper stories were added. The last building on the palace grounds was built in 1612 under Elector Friedrich V and his English wife, Princess Elizabeth Stuart. Their living space on the top floor has been converted into a dining room. We hope that the cuisine is not the English cuisine. It is the English bow or the English building and was blown up in the 1693 Palatinate War of Succession. That particular section of the building may be reserved for al fresco dining. The walls now have a promenade that overlooks the town. You'll notice a distinct lack of any streetlights, something that would have been handy a bit later on when we negotiated our rental car through the narrow cobblestone streets in search of a meal. We'd done a lot of walking, so we passed on walking back down to walk over the footbridge. The reinforcement towers have walls of up to 7 meters thick and were built in 1533 with a few repair jobs in the interim and a few sculptures of the previous owners. We, of course, were noting all of the different architectural styles. The largest of these towers is the Dickerturm, also built in 1533, and it served as a banquet hall. Of course, no castle is complete without a moat and some knights to guard it. And some gold. Gold always adds to the decor. I wonder where this door leads. It's the King's Room, the Royal Keg Room. The 30 Years' War laid much of Schloss Heidelberg to ruin, but we couldn't sit around watching the river flow too long. We had a mission. Would we have adequate transportation to get to our next stop? Was this some new form of German engineering? Or was this ZKM, the Center for Media and Art, or as they say in Germany, Kunst und Medien? We had heard about this side trip at breakfast at our Heidelberg B&B. In the 20th century, technical media radically transformed the image and the way we experience art. The camera, the phonograph, the radio, the television, video, computers, and the internet have redefined the relationship between artist, work, and viewer. Wolf Vostel's high-voltage print introduced the concept of how important electricity is to the artistic process. The exhibit, Writing the History of the Future, was a great way to spend the morning and experience these changes. And the first 2 floors at ZKM are free. What a deal! Some of the exhibits were otherworldly. The information panels told the environmental cost of artistic output. To be instantly connected uses resources. For instance, downloading 2 minutes of music on the internet uses up to 500 grams of coal in a coal-fired generator. That may be the reason that only half of the electric guitar was on display. This museum certainly did appear to be a hall of mirrors, but the question is, will we ever get out of here? And do they have any other kinds of art? Well, they did have a chair. And it wasn't a Jackson Pollock, but you certainly saw the appeal of that kind of art when you saw it in person. Well, it's not time to watch TV. What is it time to do?
I believe it's time to repair to the palace grounds at Karlsruhe for lunch.
While I was off taking pictures, Mary found herself in the weeds. A beautiful castle. We hardly explored any of the grounds. They were huge. In fact, they had their own train service. As we walked back to the car, we came across a photography shoot. It was some kind of advertisement. I was pretty sure that the model was looking for me to shoot her picture. But you must remember, photographs can lie. She wasn't a James Bond girl, so it was off to Baden, or more accurately, Sinzheim, a suburb of the European spa for the uber-wealthy. Don was still in search of whoever had caused him such grievous harm. It may be time to hire a private detective. After all, this is where Casino Royale was filmed. I wonder if James Bond will appear. No, he's not with them. Or them. Mary thought she'd check to see if James Bond was playing Baccarat, but came out none the wiser. The police suggested we may find James next door at the Trinco, where he sometimes takes part in the festivities, so off we went. But what kind of activities would James Bond take part in here? Is this where he finds the Bond girls? Possibly, as we doubted that he found them at the Stiftskirche Liebenfrau. The German on the information panel on this church was a bit more complex than mine, but I was able to glean a little information about dates, the apostles Paul and Peter, and a war or two. It appeared that the current war was on intonation at a rehearsal. The church is also used as a rehearsal space for community orchestras. The stained glass was beautiful, and as well as the traditional stained glass, there was more modern art on display as well. We had failed to find 007 at his usual haunts, so we split up for one last desperate search. Mary went to take the waters, while I drove through the old town. no James, but I did find 27 Rolex and 15 Philip Petit dealers for all the high rollers. Maybe we'll have more luck in Munich. The Cocoon Hotel chain has gone for theme park ambience, with the Munich Hofbahnhof Cocoon deciding on the menagerie theme. And Ski Hill, with trams, chairlifts, and benches made of former World Cup skis and racers. It was time to explore. Entering the Marienplatz gate, there is some beautiful neo-Gothic architecture. Many of the statues are from the early 1900s and depict important Bavarian events. At the highest point of the Rathaus, or the new town hall, there's a statue of a monk holding open a book. The Munich Kindle is the city's emblem. Monks first settled Munich, and the Catholic presence is very evident. The golden statue here is to the Virgin Mary, the Platz's namesake. But why are all these people here? What are they doing here? Is it the music, Mary? So Mary, we came here to sit down in this restaurant where a glass of water is $3.60. And so is it to enjoy the klezmer music behind you?
Not especially, no. I like klezmer music, but I've had enough of it.
Yes, an excellent tango maneuver there. That should score very well with the West German judges. These marionettes are killing it today.
Do you think they'll be up for an encore?
Marionette dancing is a test event at these Olympics. It will be interesting to see if it becomes a permanent event. Look how long he can hold that pose.
Wow, what fabulous form.
He must be a Tai Chi master as well as a dancer.
Here come the horses. Prussia's red and Bavaria's blue.
Notice the skill of the equestrians in this sport.
Test event or not, today it's certainly attracting a crowd.
And let's not forget our band today, the Five Bells. And he's still holding that pose. We now return to our regular programming, Architectural Delights of the Marienplatz. Here we see the Rathaus of 1392 and are able to compare it to the neo-Gothic new town hall built in 1874. While the old town hall lacks the marionettes of the new Rathaus, it does have a windmill attached and some statuary, complete with instructions. St. Peter's Church was built in 1368 to replace the original church at this site. Although the roof was damaged in World War II, it has been restored complete with its original fresco. This was possible because the Nazis had kept a meticulous photographic record of all historic sites. The altar survived World War II thanks to having been buried in sandbags. St. Peter's is a Catholic church, so there's no shortage of gold and artifacts. Mary was interested in discovering more about Saint Mendicia, who had been beheaded by the Romans in the year 400. Munich was a Catholic stronghold against northern German Protestantism, and the remains of Saint Mendicia were a papal gift in thanks for that service. Thankfully, her head had been located in the intervening 1200 years. I'm not sure she's snickering at that last comment. But it was now beer o'clock. We needed to be pointed in the direction of beer. As tempting as it was to listen to one of the mini buskers or go to the Hofbrauhaus, on a warm and sunny day we opted for an outdoor beer garden. The bill was reasonable, and Mary did not have to consider finding employment to cover the tab. Max Joseph Platz houses the residence of Maximilian, who Napoleon transformed into Max Joseph, King of Bavaria. It is now a museum. Max Joseph built the National Theater next door, and his statue adorns the Platz. But we couldn't tarry here endlessly. We weren't like these tourists. We had a protest to get to. The Odeonplatz was laid out by the Wittelsbach kings. The church contains half of their remains, although that is unclear as to whether that is the top or bottom half. In any case, we will keep a sharp eye out for that missing half. The Odeonplatz was laid out to reflect their modern vision of urban planning, leaving plenty of room for tractor parking. The Hall of Heroes next door was built to honor Bavarian generals. This historic seat of power was the epicenter of a farmers' protest. Across the street is the Hofgarten, once the backyard of the residence palace. As well as its numerous walkways, it has a number of unusual structures in it, including a Renaissance-style temple where buskers take things up a notch. They bring their own piano. Just past the Hofgarten is the English Garden. It is Europe's largest urban public park, and it was a great spot for some art shots. It is also Munich's nude sunbathing area. We didn't go to that part of the park. Instead, we chose the haunted section, where a few ghosts showed up. Fortunately, there was a church nearby where we could seek solace. St. Michael's Church was built in 1466 to 68 and is one of the first great Renaissance buildings north of the Alps. The ornate facade is modeled after the Jesuit Church in Rome, home of the Jesuit order. And we have been successful in our quest. The other half of the Wittelsbachs are interred here. St. Michael's is undergoing restoration after World War II, as only the towers survived the bombings. Unfortunately, it was evening when we visited and we couldn't enjoy the modern stained glass fully. Being a Catholic church, they did have gold and lots of candles, with suggested donations for absolution, and a choice of saints from which to choose. The Rood was modern art. And then it was dinner at the famous Augustiner Beer Hall. The German beer hall experience is where you get to really meet the locals, and they all said the same thing about us.